beer and the peanuts? The very same. Hand me the hammer, Jack said. The project was a disaster from the start. Jack insisted on putting a dozen tacks in his mouth at once, like a professional upholsterer, which resulted in him accidentally swallowing one when Jeanne accidentally dropped a heavy spring on his foot. I'm dying. Jack muffled through the tacks. I'm an ironclad casualty. Oh, stop being so dramatic, Jeanne said, though she looked worried. Drink some water. Maybe it'll rust away. After 3 hours of hammering, cursing, and several near misses with a staple gun, the couch was finally fixed. It was now so firm that sitting on it felt like resting on a pile of bricks covered in plaid polyester. It's supportive, Chrissy said, bouncing once and immediately stopping. It's a masterpiece, Jack said, rubbing his sore back. Now, let's go to the pub before I lose the ability to walk. The pub was crowded and smoky. They found a small table in the corner and ordered a round of beers. You know, Jack said, feeling the glow of the alcohol, men really are the stronger sex. Look at us. We conquered that couch. We faced the springs of doom. You cried when you hit your thumb, Jack, Jeanne pointed out. That was a war cry. Jack insisted. The peaceful atmosphere was shattered when a large man brought supported, wearing a leather vest and a permanent scowl, approached their table. He didn't look like he wanted to discuss upholstery. Hi, honey, the man said, leaning over the table and staring directly at Chrissy. Buy you a drink? Chrissy blinked. No thanks. I have one. I'm talking about a real drink, the man growled. Not that dishwater you're sipping. Jack felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the fat Kenny Jensen instinct. He looked at the man's fists. They were the size of hams. Excuse me, Jack said, his voice a bit thin. She said she's fine. The man turned his gaze to Jack. It was like being stared at by a hungry bear. Did I ask you? Tinkerbell. Jeanne and Chrissy went quiet. The surrounding tables went quiet. Look, Jack said, trying to find a compromise. We're just here to celebrate a fixed couch. No need for a scene. I'll show you a scene, the man said, grabbing Jack's collar and lifting him 2 inches off the chair. Why don't you take a walk before I use you to mop the floor? Jack looked at Jeanne. He looked at Chrissy. He saw the disappointment and the fear in their eyes. Okay, Jack said softly. I'm going. No problem. The man laughed, dropping Jack back into his seat. Smart move, kid. Now, how about that drink, Blondie? Chrissy stood up, her face red. I'm with him. And we're leaving. They walked out of the pub in silence. The Santa Monica night air felt cold. I'm sorry, Jack said, staring at the sidewalk. I was yellow. I've got chicken in my blood. Jack, don't say that, Jeanne said, though she didn't look at him. He was huge. He would have killed you. A man's got to do what a man's got to do, Jack muttered. And apparently, what I do is run. Chapter 10, The Redemption of Jack Tripper. The next morning, Jack was a ghost in his own apartment. He refused to cook. He refused to joke. He even refused to watch the Sunday morning cartoons. I'm a coward, Jeanne, he told her as she tried to dice onions for an omelet. I should have stood up to him. I should have wrung his neck. With what? Jeanne asked. Your spatula? It's the principle. If women ran the world, there'd be no wars, just a lot of nagging. But as long as men are in charge, we're supposed to be brave. A knock at the door. It was Stanley Roper, looking for his Sunday paper. Hey, Tripper, Roper said, leaning in. I heard about what happened at the pub last night. Word gets around. Jack winced. I know. Mr. Roper, I'm a disgrace. Disgrace. Roper laughed. You did the right thing. Fighting is for people with too much teeth and not enough brains. Besides, you could never get into a fight, it would ruin your nails. Jack looked at his hands. My nails. Yeah. Roper winked. You gotta keep 'em pretty for the flower arranging. After Roper left, Jack's mood shifted from depression to a slow-burning fuse. That's it. Even Roper thinks I'm a pushover. I'm going back to that pub. Jack! No! Chrissy cried. He'll murder you. I don't care. I'd rather be a dead hero than a living coward. Jack marched down to the pub, with Jeanne and Chrissy trailing behind him like worried chaperones. The big man was there again, sitting at the bar. He saw Jack coming and began to chuckle. Back for more, Tinkerbell. Did you bring your knitting needles this time? Jack walked right up to him. His knees were shaking so hard they were practically playing the castanets, but he kept his head up. Listen, man, Jack said, his voice surprisingly steady. You behaved like a creep in here last night. You insulted my friends. You spoiled our evening. And I think you owe someone an apology. The man stood up. He towered over Jack. He looked around at the crowd, then back at the skinny kid in the Hawaiian shirt. Is that so? The man said, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. Jack didn't flinch. Yes, that's so. The man reached out, and for a second, Jeanne screamed. But instead of a punch, the man grabbed Jack's hand and shook it. You got guts, kid, the man said, a genuine grin breaking across his face. Most guys would have run, but you came back. I like that. I'm sorry about last night. I'd had a few too many. Jack blinked. You're sorry. Yeah. My name's Moose. Buy you a beer. Jack exhaled a breath he felt like he'd been holding since 1972. I'd like that. Moose. I'd really like that. As they sat at the bar, Jeanne and Chrissy watched from the doorway, stunned. He did it, Chrissy whispered. Jack's a hero. He's an idiot, Jeanne corrected, but she was smiling. A brave, stupid, wonderful idiot. Chapter 11, The Case of the Missing Rent. The high of Jack's victory lasted exactly 3 days. It was brought crashing down by the cold, hard reality of paragraph 1. The rent is due. $300, Jeanne said, looking at the empty envelope on the shelf. "It's gone. Gone?" Jack asked, coming out